Chair Caputo, I appreciate and I respect your opinion. And as you know, we clearly disagree on this, couldn't disagree more. And one of the things that keeps occurring is when I hear people like yourself talk about the benefits of gaming in North Jersey, ultimately what you're saying is in this oversaturated market that is causing a decline in Atlantic City's revenue, the answer is to build a casino and add casinos to the market. What I have been pointing out from the beginning is that when you look at any study that has been performed, whether it's Deutsche Bank, the Christensen Group, Stockton University, the Chamber of Commerce, they point out that building casinos in North Jersey will simply cannibalize Atlantic City to the point whatever revenue you're able to generate does not make up for the harms and losses, not just to Atlantic County in a parochial way, but to the state of New Jersey. And one of the things that I have been asking and pushing for is, before we make such a dramatic decision, shouldn't we look to have a study that perhaps you could point to, one within which that would show that all the studies we have is wrong? And an example of that is when you were saying that Atlantic City has been given 5 years. We have to look at that truthfully. When we look at it, it took the state legislature over 2 years to implement it with a master plan. The third year, yourself and others were
Chris, if you have a question, we've made an agreement to allow you to ask questions. Ask a question.
Okay, we're getting a heck of a wind-up. But the point is this, because some of the statements that you made,
Right.
I believe just factually are inaccurate. And when you say that it was given 5 years and it took 2.5 years to implement it, and in the third year you already held hearings in the Meadowlands talking about North Jersey Casino, you brought the instability to Atlantic City without giving it the opportunity to get that 5-year plan and get a foothold.
answer?
And recently, and here comes the question, recently Carl Icahn has pointed out
Right.
that he is prepared to invest over $100 million, not just into the Taj Mahal, but which would ultimately inure to the benefit of the state of New Jersey. And that if you go forward with his proposal, he is not going to invest that money. And doesn't that just prove my point that the uncertainty in the market is exactly what has been holding back Atlantic City from moving forward? And when you look at the fact that between Revel right now is moving to push a license through because Glenn Straub sees an opportunity, but he's doing it slowly based upon finding out what happens in North Jersey. Simply by doing this, what you're doing is, wouldn't you agree, cannibalizing Atlantic City, and at the same time you're talking about revenue that every study says is not going to materialize, and you have yet to put a tax rate on what that revenue would be while promising the horsemen, Atlantic City, home rule, all sorts of percentages of money that there's no factual basis to support.
Right. All right, Ralph, please respond, and you got one more question, Chris.
I'm going to try to respond to a number of issues. I don't know what was the question, what wasn't, but let me say this. I don't think this committee should respond to threats. Carl Icahn is threatening that he will not put $100 million in a casino because there's a potential of North Jersey casinos. You know, he's a big boy. You know, when he assumed ownership of the Taj Mahal, he has no agreement with the people of the state of New Jersey. They're going to make that decision whether they want gaming there or here. And for him to say something like that, I think, is totally inappropriate. Two, there are studies that indicate that Deutsche, in fact, issued a study indicating that casinos in North Jersey would earn over $500 million. I could produce that study for you.
No, I'd like to talk to you about it because that's
let me
the
finish.
max.
Let me finish.
One at a time.
Hold on. As far as the 5-year moratorium, we don't need a study. All you have to do, Assemblyman Brown, is look at the numbers, and the numbers are devastating. When you see a city in trouble that they're in at this point because they're not getting their revenue basically from those casino properties, when you see properties that have closed and sold tremendously undervalued, when you see that business is now going across our borders to Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, New England, you don't need to have a study to indicate that you're not making the money that you should have been making. And the fact is, in a radius of the North Jersey, New York area, there are 15 to 20 million people. And the competition has now strangled Atlantic City. We're not out to destroy Atlantic City. We want to see Atlantic City become a casino, non-gaming resort town. The fact is there is business that we are losing that's being siphoning off to other areas of our country, of our region, and we're losing that revenue. You can't deny the fact that we're losing that kind of revenue. I don't care what you say. Now, I understand politically that you have a position, and I respect that position, but I think you're in denial, as I told you at the last hearing, over the realities of the collapse of the casino industry in New Jersey. And we've got to come up with some alternative. This is not only my thinking. I started this war 7 or 8 years ago, but we have many people on both sides of the aisle, including the administration, and including many people from the business community and the labor unions, et cetera, that are supporting this referendum. So, let's let the people make that decision. We don't have an argument. The argument is going to be placed before the ballot, and that campaign will take place, and the voters of New Jersey will make that decision like they did in '76 when they combined it to Atlantic City. This is a sea change. This is a pivot. And you've got to recognize that we're in a very deep hole, and we're trying to provide a sound alternative to a very devastating situation. I worked in the town. I understand. I have many friends there that have lost their homes. I have seen tremendous unemployment, a foreclosure rate that's the highest in the country. I mean, how can we just sit by idly and not make an attempt, a legislative attempt, to provide some health and financial stability to the state of New Jersey?
Thank you, Ralph. Chris, if you have a follow-up,
Yeah.
please, and then we have a whole load of people that want to testify and a lot of other matters to get to.
Well, there are a couple of things I just want to point out, and I thank you for that, and we'll end with a question. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, but in order to formulate the question...
Again, I'm being very respectful. Questions? You have any questions?
Yes.
Questions. I'll give you as much time as you need to lay your opinions out.
Okay.
We'll respect the rest of us.
Sure, I do. When you're talking about helping Atlantic City, and you're talking about coming up with a plan, wouldn't you want to act like any other CEO of a major corporation and have a study that actually supports the competition you're bringing in? And we understand that there are a few rich people who intend on getting even more rich off of bringing these casinos up north, but it's really about the people who live in Atlantic City, the people who live in Atlantic County. When you have over 15,000 people looking to lose their job, when you have the highest unemployment in the state, when you have the highest foreclosure in the country, and you propose a plan that doesn't even have a factual basis. When you talk about Deutsche Bank, you're correct. They did give a projection. They said the most that casinos would generate is $500 million. If we tax it at 50%, which you have yet to tell us what the tax rate is going to be, which would tell me and should tell every voter and citizen of the state of New Jersey something's being pushed through without the proper facts being put before them. But if it was at 50%, the most you're going to get is $250 million. Deutsche Bank also says you're going to lose $350 million out of Atlantic City, which is a net loss to the state. And when we talk about these programs and our seniors and the disabled, if we truly care about them, we would make sure that we get it right. We wouldn't rush it through. We would know what the tax rate is going to be. And so when these broad statements are made, I just think it's important to be pointed out that they're not accurate. And so I would ask you simply, if you have, which Chairman Keam was polite enough and courteous enough to point out, a somewhat complicated formula that talks about 2% to the municipalities, it talks about a percentage to Atlantic City, it talks about a percentage to the seniors. You cannot in good conscience tell anyone that those promises will come true or what that amount will be, because your own projections by your own expert tell you that the state will lose money, and you haven't even set the tax rate yet. Isn't that true?
I'm going to respond, I hope, very, very clearly. Number one, the enabling legislation will set forth the tax rate. That's like everything else is going to be negotiated. It will be higher than what exists in Atlantic City at this point. I would say, as a guess, it would be 40 to 60%, as opposed to what it is now. And you're right. If the tax rate stayed the same, we would not accomplish much. But the fact is, you have no alternative. What you do, Chris, and I say something, I respect your position. The fact is, I don't believe it. I think you're being sincere. You don't have an alternative. You want to wait for more collision, for more deterioration, because there is nothing in the horizon based on what's happened recently. Your argument might have meant something a year or two ago, but since those closings happened, and since you're looking at vacant buildings, the Trump Plaza, the Showboat, the Atlantic Club, which was the Valley Golden Nugget, and now the Revel claims they're going to open, and the terrible condition of some of the other properties, tell me what your alternative is.
May I tell him?
I like, I mean,
What he's asking, may I tell him?
Well,
You don't have an
I know what you're going to
alternative.
answer.
I do.
You're
I
going to
have
talk
an
about
alternative.
the Las Vegas plan. I've heard it all before.
Well, he's saying
No,
I don't
I
have one,
mean-
so
but
maybe
you're
he forgot
accusing,
about it, so
you're
I'm trying-
accusing
I
me
just
and
want to
others that
remind him.
support this legislation that we haven't thought it through and that we're not being responsible. You have, I'm going to just say, you don't have to answer. You have no alternative.
I do.
You don't have an alternative because you've spoken on this 5 times and you have never come up with an alternative.
I
You
would
have
love
never
to
come
give
up
you
with
the
one
alternative.
way of helping the casino industry, the people of Atlantic City. All you say is don't make any changes.
No, that's not
That's all you
accurate.
say.
Okay, well...
You want to
Chairman,
continue.
I give him the alternative.
Okay, now do you have any other questions for Ralph? Your alternative can come,
Will be part of a question.
will be part, not part of a question.
I can turn that into a
Will
question.
be part of your statement. Thank you. Do you have a specific, last question, Chris, and please don't
I understand.
upset me.
It's like at home, that's what my...
I want to thank the speaker for allowing you to substitute today. I just want to make sure you
No,
understand.
I do want to make that point. I think it is important. Clearly, the chairman knows that I have an alternative position, and he could have just as easily said, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry.
You have no change.
And he has allowed this. And I think that's important to point out again. So I thank you. I'm delaying things. So let me just talk real quick about the question on the alternative. And the chairman is correct. This question includes some facts about Las Vegas.
Oh,
And
no.
you tell us that there is no alternative. But what I say to you is the plan that you have set forward, as I've pointed out by the studies, is going to hurt the entire state. So an alternative that does more harm than good is certainly not an alternative at all. But let's look and say, Brown, what is your plan? And I will tell you that right now, if you look into Atlantic City, Resorts just spent $80 million for Margaritaville. Borgata just spent $50 million for a pool complex, nightclub, and dining facility. Tropicana just spent $50 million to upgrade its South Tower Fitness Center. Golden Nugget just spent $155 million for renovations. The Playground just spent $50 million for non-gaming entertainment. Steel Pier just spent $121 million for family entertainment. The Gateway Project, which includes an island campus for Stockton College, just spent $204 million. That is a community that is moving in the right direction. You have Carl Icahn posed to invest $100 million. You have Straub with the Revel looking to get that license. And if we were smart, we would do like Las Vegas. And here's your plan. The minute that you guys came up with a 5-year plan, you set up a plan that was destined for failure. Because if anybody has money and they want to invest, they're going to hold on to it for that 5 years to see whether you're foolish enough to put gaming in North Jersey. Whereas on the other hand, if the transition period would have been when the non-gaming revenue rose to 60 to 70%, then it would be bulletproof. Then Atlantic City would be at a point you can build them wherever you want to build them because it's dependent upon nothing. But at this point in time, when you're talking about a city that has over 15,000 people looking to lose their jobs and the highest
Chris,
foreclosure rate.
we've gone through these statistics 10 times. You both agree on the statistics, that it's a disaster there. You have a different way of trying to fix it. Do you have a last question for this witness?
I guess I'll let it go at that, Mr. Chairman. The point is there's a diametrical difference. Mine is based in fact, his is based in speculation and his own personal opinions, which certainly is no way to run a business.